Hello brothers, and welcome to Sigma Old Man Channel. The strongest people are not those who show strength in front of us, but those who win battles we know nothing about. Sigma males are the definition of silent warriors. They move through life like lone wolves, self-sufficient, independent, and untouchable. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Even the strongest minds have weak spots, and Sigma males are no exception. Studies show that people who are highly independent often struggle with deeper emotional and psychological battles than those who rely on social support. Makes sense, right? When you refuse to lean on anyone, all the weight of life falls squarely on your shoulders. And let's be real, no matter how strong you think you are, even mountains crack under enough pressure. Sigma males don't like to admit their struggles. They'd rather ghost their problems than face them head on. But whether they like it or not, these hidden weaknesses shape their lives in ways they can't always control. And today we're pulling back the curtain on the real struggles they deal with, the ones they never talk about but definitely feel. Brace yourself, because this is the sad truth behind the weaknesses every Sigma male secretly battles. And no, we're not talking about cliches like struggling with emotions or not fitting in. This is next-level insight, raw, brutal, and unapologetically honest. Number one, they're too good at hiding pain. Sigma males are masters of disguise, not the kind that involves fake identities or secret missions, but the kind that allows them to mask their pain so well that no one even suspects they're suffering. They could be carrying the weight of 1,000 struggles, but you wouldn't see a crack. They laugh when they're supposed to, show up when needed, and handle their business like nothing is wrong. But beneath that cool, composed exterior, a storm is raging. They don't wear their emotions on their sleeves because they see vulnerability as a liability. To them, admitting they're struggling is like handing someone a loaded weapon and hoping they don't pull the trigger, so they keep everything locked inside, convincing themselves they can handle it alone. The problem? Pain doesn't just disappear because you ignore it. It builds, festers, and takes root in ways they don't even notice, until it starts to consume them. When life becomes too overwhelming, Sigma males don't break down in front of people. They don't call a friend for support. They simply disappear. No explanations, no warnings. Just a quiet withdrawal from everything and everyone. Maybe they stop responding to texts. Maybe they dive into their work even harder, using productivity as a shield. Maybe they vanish into their own world, hoping that solitude will fix what's broken inside them. But the more they retreat, the worse it gets. The real tragedy? No one notices until it's too late. Because they've trained people to believe they're always fine, no one questions their silence. No one asks if they're okay because they always seemed like the type who didn't need to be checked on. So their suffering goes unseen, their struggles go unaddressed, and by the time people realize something is wrong, the damage is already done. Sigma males think suffering and silence makes them stronger, but the truth is, it isolates them in ways they don't fully understand. They're not invincible, and no matter how much they pretend they don't need support, every human being reaches a breaking point. The question is, will anyone be there to pull them back before they disappear for good? Number two, they fear being ordinary more than they fear failure. Being ordinary is the one thing a Sigma male refuses to accept. Failure, that's just a stepping stone. Rejection doesn't faze them. But the idea of living a life that blends into the background, where every day looks the same, where they become just another nameless, faceless cog in the machine, that's the real horror. They'd rather burn everything to the ground than settle for mediocrity. This is why they take risks that most people wouldn't dare. They walk away from stable jobs, abandon traditional paths, and reject the idea that success should look a certain way. They don't crave approval, they crave freedom, the kind that allows them to live on their own terms, no matter how difficult that may be. While others play it safe, they lean into uncertainty, willing to lose, fail, and rebuild, if it means they get to avoid a life that feels meaningless. But this mindset comes with its own struggles. The constant push for something greater can feel like an endless race with no finish line. Even when they achieve something incredible, they quickly discard it, chasing the next challenge before they even take a moment to appreciate what they've done. They're wired to seek, never to settle. It's not about money, status, or recognition. It's about the thrill of knowing they're carving their own path. The irony? This relentless pursuit of greatness often isolates them. While others find comfort in routine and stability, Sigma males find it suffocating. They struggle to relate to people who are content with good enough, and they rarely stay in one place, mentally, emotionally, or even physically, for too long. They are constantly evolving, always searching for something more, never fully satisfied. It's a powerful way to live, but also an exhausting one. Because when your greatest fear is being ordinary, you're never allowed to slow down. You can't afford complacency. You can't take the easy road. And most people won't understand why you choose the hard way every single time. But for a Sigma male, there is no choice. The alternative, being just another face in the crowd, is simply unacceptable. Number 3. Too independent for their own good. Sigma males wear their independence like armor, convinced that needing help is a sign of weakness. They don't just prefer to do things on their own, they insist on it. Every problem is theirs to solve. Every burden is theirs to carry. And every setback is just another battle they have to fight alone. They take pride in being self-sufficient, in never relying on anyone, in proving time and time again that they can handle whatever life throws at them. But here's where it gets dangerous. They're so used to doing everything alone that even when they're drowning, they refuse to reach out. They could be falling apart inside, but instead of admitting it, they'll convince themselves they just need more time, more effort, more resilience. If the weight gets too heavy, they don't ask for help. They just double down, pushing themselves even harder. And while this relentless self-reliance makes them strong, it also isolates them in ways they don't fully realize until it's too late. The worst part? People start believing they don't need help. They become the person others lean on, the one who always has it together, the rock in every situation. And when you've built a reputation as the guy who never struggles, who do you turn to when you actually do? That's the trap. Sigma males don't just refuse help. They make it impossible for anyone to even offer it. They push people away without meaning to, leaving themselves alone when they need connection the most. Eventually, the pressure catches up. No one, no matter how independent, can do everything alone forever. But by the time a Sigma male realizes this, the damage is often done. Relationships have faded, opportunities have slipped by, and all that's left is the crushing realization that independence, when taken to the extreme, is just another form of self-destruction. They think they're protecting themselves, but in reality they're building walls so high that even they can't break them down. Number 4. Silent rage that eats them alive. Sigma males are experts at suppressing emotions, especially anger. They don't lash out, they don't cause scenes, and they don't engage in pointless arguments. They just absorb everything, every frustration, every disappointment, every betrayal, until it all settles deep inside them like a ticking time bomb. People assume they're indifferent, that nothing gets under their skin, but that's only because they never let their emotions show. What no one realizes is that their silence isn't peace, it's pressure building. Unlike others who explode in the moment and then move on, Sigma males let their anger marinate. They replay situations in their heads, dissecting every detail, fueling their own resentment without even realizing it. But instead of confronting the issue or expressing their emotions, they channel that rage into something else. Work, self-improvement, isolation, or even revenge, but in the most calculated way possible. They won't yell, they won't break things, but they will find a way to release that anger in a way that serves their agenda. The real danger, that anger turns inward. Instead of directing their frustration at others, they blame themselves for allowing the situation to happen in the first place. They question their judgment, beat themselves up for not seeing things coming, and push themselves even harder to never be in that position again. This self-destructive cycle means that even when the world sees them as calm and collected internally, they're waging a war that no one knows about. But when the pressure reaches its breaking point, their anger doesn't come out in fiery explosions. It's cold, calculated, and final. If a Sigma male ever does decide to cut someone off or retaliate, it's not a temporary outburst. It's permanent. They don't do second chances, they don't play emotional games, and they don't make threats. When they're done, they're done. And the scariest part, no one ever sees it coming. Because by the time a Sigma male reaches that point, the damage is already done and there's no turning back. Number 5. An overactive mind that won't shut up. Sigma males don't just think, they obsess. Their minds are like high-powered machines that never hit the brakes, constantly analyzing, dissecting, and overanalyzing everything around them. They question every decision, every interaction, and every possible outcome, not because they want to, but because their brains simply won't shut up. Even when they try to relax, there's always another thought creeping in, another scenario to break down, another detail to reconsider. It's not just about big decisions either. They'll replay a conversation from 3 days ago, wondering if they should have worded something differently. They'll analyze someone's body language, tone, and choice of words, trying to figure out what wasn't said. And when they're alone, their minds go into overdrive, questioning everything, where they're headed, what they're doing, and whether they're making the right choices. It's like living in a constant state of mental chess, always 5 steps ahead, but never truly at peace. The worst part? They know they're overthinking, but they can't stop. Logic tells them to let things go, but their brains refuse. Sleep becomes a battleground because the moment they lie down, the thoughts flood in. Unfinished plans, future goals, past regrets, random philosophical debates with themselves. They exhaust themselves just by existing in their own heads. This relentless thinking makes them incredibly sharp, but it also drains them in ways most people don't understand. It's why they crave solitude, not just to be alone, but to give their minds a break from the constant noise. It's why they struggle with indecision, not because they don't know what they want, but because they see every possible consequence. And it's why they sometimes disappear, not to avoid people, but because their own thoughts are already overwhelming enough. For Sigma males, their minds are both their greatest weapon and their worst enemy. They can outthink almost anyone, but the price they pay is never truly feeling at ease. The battle isn't with the world, it's with themselves. And no matter how much they accomplish, their greatest struggle will always be finding a way to silence the noise inside their own heads. Number 6, they struggle with the concept of wasting time. Sigma males treat time like a currency they can't afford to waste. Every second must have purpose. Every action must lead somewhere. And if they're not doing something productive, they feel like they're falling behind. While most people can kick back, relax, and enjoy the simple pleasure of doing nothing, Sigma males see that as a slow descent into mediocrity. The idea of lounging around with no goal, no mission, and no progress, it makes their skin crawl. Even when they do attempt to relax, their minds won't allow it. If they're watching a movie, they're analyzing the plot. If they're at a social event, they're evaluating the value of the conversation. If they're lying in bed, their brains are already mapping out the next move, the next goal, the next challenge. True downtime doesn't exist for them. There's always something to optimize, something to improve, something better they could be doing. And when they do try to take a break, that creeping guilt sets in, whispering that they're wasting potential, that they could be doing more. This mindset makes them incredibly driven, but it also robs them of simple joys. They struggle to be present in the moment because their minds are already in the future. Relationships suffer because they see small talk and meaningless activities as distractions rather than bonding experiences. Even hobbies become projects because they feel the need to master everything they touch. But here's the irony. By constantly pushing themselves to be productive, they risk burning out. Their obsession with efficiency means they rarely take the time to recharge, and when exhaustion finally catches up, it hits hard. Yet instead of slowing down, they push through, convincing themselves that rest is for people who don't have ambitions as big as theirs. For Sigma males, the real challenge isn't achieving success. It's allowing themselves to pause without guilt, to understand that not every moment needs to be a stepping stone to something greater, that sometimes the best use of time isn't doing more, but being more. But until they learn that, they'll always be at war with the clock, chasing an invisible finish line that never truly arrives. Number 7, they're either 0% or 100%. There's no in between. Sigma males don't do balance. Everything in their world is either all in or completely indifferent. There's no lukewarm, no half effort, no let's just see how it goes. If they commit to something, they throw themselves into it with relentless intensity. But the second they stop seeing value in it, they're gone. No hesitation, no lingering attachment, just a clean break. This extreme mindset applies to everything: work, relationships, passions, even personal improvement. If a Sigma male is interested in something, he'll obsess over it, mastering every detail, pushing himself beyond limits that most people wouldn't even consider. But if he loses interest, it's dead to him. He doesn't slowly fade out. He vanishes, mentally and emotionally detaching in a way that leaves people wondering if he ever cared in the first place. Relationships are where this trait becomes both powerful and destructive. If a Sigma male chooses someone, he'll be intensely loyal, deeply invested, and fully present. But if that connection starts feeling forced, shallow, or unfulfilling, he won't waste time trying to fix it. He won't drag things out or engage in emotional theatrics. He'll just shut off. And when he does, it's irreversible. People who once meant the world to him become nothing more than a memory, and no amount of begging, guilt-tripping, or second chances will bring him back. The same applies to work and goals. When a Sigma male finds something he's passionate about, he'll push himself to extremes, working insane hours, sacrificing sleep, and obsessing over every detail. But the moment it starts to feel like a pointless grind, he disengages completely. There's no slow burnout. He just flips the switch and walks away, no matter how much effort he's put in. To outsiders, it looks reckless, even self-sabotaging, but for him, it's simple. If it's not all in, it's not worth it. This inability to find a middle ground makes life intense. It leads to massive achievements, but also sudden disappearances, deep connections, but also ruthless detachment. Sigma males don't coast through life. They either conquer or abandon, and while this mindset gives them an edge, it also makes them unpredictable, misunderstood, and at times their own worst enemy. Number 8, they can be so focused they forget to live. Sigma males don't just focus. They disappear into whatever has their attention. When they're locked in, nothing else exists. They don't hear their phone ringing, they don't notice the sun setting, and they definitely don't remember that they were supposed to eat hours ago. It's not just deep work. It's a complete blackout from reality. This level of concentration is a superpower, but it comes with a cost. They'll get so wrapped up in their goals, projects, or personal missions that they forget to take care of themselves. Sleep becomes optional, meals are skipped, and social interaction completely irrelevant. Friends will text, family will call, but they won't respond. Not because they're ignoring people, but because their minds are so absorbed in what they're doing that everything else feels like background noise. And when they do snap out of it, they'll realize it's been days since they last stepped outside, checked in with someone, or even looked in a mirror. This intensity makes them insanely productive, but it also isolates them. People mistake their absence for disinterest, when in reality they just lose track of time in ways that most can't understand. They don't mean to shut people out, it just happens. They get addicted to progress, obsessed with solving problems, and fixated on pushing themselves to the next level. But while they're busy chasing their ambitions, life keeps moving, and they often don't notice until it's too late. Relationships fade, opportunities pass, and by the time they look up, they realize they've been living in a self-imposed tunnel for far too long. And yet, even when they recognize this pattern, breaking it is nearly impossible. The moment they find something new to dive into, the cycle starts all over again. They don't just focus, they vanish. And unless they learn to step back and exist outside of their obsessions, they'll always be at risk of waking up one day to find that while they were busy conquering their world, they forgot to actually live in it. Number 9, they're masters at cutting people off, even when they shouldn't. Sigma males don't do second chances. If someone crosses a line, shows disloyalty, or simply starts feeling like dead weight, they're gone. No drama, no drawn-out conversations, just erased. They don't waste time on toxic people, and they refuse to entertain relationships that feel forced, fake, or one-sided. But here's the catch. Sometimes they cut people off too soon, mistaking misunderstandings for betrayals and seeing minor flaws as irredeemable weaknesses. Because they value independence above all else, their instinct is to walk away rather than work things out. Instead of hashing out a conflict, they disengage. Instead of expressing disappointment, they disappear. It's not that they don't care, it's that they assume people should already know how to treat them. If someone messes up, Sigma males don't sit around hoping for change. They convince themselves that letting go is easier than fixing what's broken. This makes them impossible to manipulate, but it also means they sometimes cut off good people for the wrong reasons. Not every disagreement is a betrayal, not every flaw is a red flag. But for Sigma males, relationships feel like a constant evaluation. Are you worth my energy, or are you a distraction? The second someone falls into the latter category, they're done. And because Sigma males are wired to move forward without regret, they rarely look back to reconsider their decisions. But the truth is, some connections are worth fighting for. Not every failing is a deal breaker, and not every conflict means the relationship is doomed. Communication could solve a lot of these issues, but Sigma males are often too stubborn to engage in it. They assume people should get them without needing explanations, and when that doesn't happen, they shut down instead of opening up. Over time, this habit can leave them with a shrinking circle where only the most resilient people remain. They pride themselves on having zero tolerance for nonsense, but the real question is, how many people did they push away who actually cared? The world isn't black and white, and not every mistake warrants a permanent exit. Until Sigma males learn the value of repairing instead of removing, they'll continue to master the art of cutting people off even when they shouldn't. Number 10, they refuse to explain themselves even when they should. Sigma males operate under a simple rule: I am who I am, take it or leave it. They don't believe in justifying themselves, explaining their choices, or giving people a roadmap to understand them. In their minds, their actions should be enough. If someone doesn't get them, that's their problem, not the Sigma males. But here's where things get tricky. This refusal to explain can create unnecessary misunderstandings, pushing people away who never intended to be against them in the first place. Because they move in silence and rarely vocalize their thoughts, people often assume the worst. Friends think they're distant because they don't care. Colleagues mistake their independence for arrogance. Romantic partners feel neglected, believing the Sigma male is cold or uninterested. But in reality, he's just being himself, unaware that his silence is being misread. And even when he realizes people are getting the wrong idea, he still won't correct them. Why? Because in his mind, if someone truly understands him, he shouldn't have to explain. This stubbornness comes from a mix of pride and efficiency. Sigma males see explaining themselves as a waste of energy. Why spend time convincing people of their intentions when they could just move forward and let their results speak? But the truth is, perception matters. The world doesn't run on silent actions alone, and refusing to clarify things can cause unnecessary conflicts, lost opportunities, and strained relationships. Some people want to understand them. They just need a little insight. But instead of offering that, the Sigma male lets them draw their own, often incorrect conclusions. This mindset works well in situations where they genuinely don't care about the outcome. But in moments where clarity could save a friendship, a career opportunity, or a relationship, this habit turns into self-sabotage. They don't have to explain themselves to everyone, but knowing when to communicate could prevent a lot of unnecessary damage. Unfortunately, for most Sigma males, the idea of explaining feels like bending to someone else's expectations. And until they learn that clarity isn't weakness, they'll keep pushing away people who simply needed a little more understanding to stay. Number 11, they're too comfortable being the underdog. Sigma males don't chase attention, they avoid it. They prefer to move in silence, letting their work, skills, and results speak for themselves. They don't brag, they don't seek validation, and they definitely don't care about impressing the crowd. In their minds, the underdog position is the ultimate advantage. No one sees them coming until it's too late. They'd rather be underestimated than put on a pedestal, because being unnoticed gives them the freedom to operate without interference. But here's the problem. Sometimes they get too comfortable in the shadows. They convince themselves that stepping into the spotlight is a waste of time, that recognition doesn't matter, that visibility is for the weak. In reality, though, some opportunities require them to be seen. Deals don't just fall into laps. Promotions don't happen in silence. And sometimes, the right people need to know what they're capable of. But because Sigma males despise self-promotion, they let opportunities slip through their fingers, waiting for people to notice them, instead of strategically positioning themselves to be seen. It's not about seeking approval, it's about leveraging visibility. The world rewards those who know how to present themselves. And while Sigma males may be the most competent in the room, that competence doesn't always translate into success if no one knows they exist. They don't want to play the game, but sometimes playing smart means knowing when to step up and claim what's theirs. Their reluctance to be in the spotlight also extends to relationships. They don't push for recognition, even when they deserve it. They don't correct misunderstandings when people fail to see their worth. They believe that if someone really understands them, they won't need to fight for attention. But life doesn't work that way. Sometimes, making a mark requires being seen, not for vanity, but for strategy. And until they realize that staying hidden isn't always an advantage, they'll continue to let others take the opportunities they should be claiming for themselves. Sigma males are wired differently, and that's both their greatest strength and their biggest struggle. They move through life on their own terms, refusing to conform, refusing to explain, refusing to settle. Their independence is unmatched, their focus is relentless, and their ability to operate in the shadows makes them a force to be reckoned with. But even the strongest minds have blind spots. Their fear of being ordinary pushes them to extremes. Their obsession with self-sufficiency makes them suffer in silence. Their silent rage eats them alive while their overactive minds refuse to rest. They cut people off when they should communicate, refuse to explain themselves even when clarity could save them, and get so lost in their own worlds that they forget to live. And worst of all, they thrive in the underdog role so much that they don't realize when it's time to step into the spotlight and claim what's rightfully theirs. None of this makes them weak. It makes them human. The problem isn't that they struggle. It's that they don't allow themselves to struggle openly. They carry their burdens alone, convinced that vulnerability is a trap, that explaining themselves is unnecessary, that asking for help is weakness. But true strength isn't about carrying the weight of the world alone. It's about knowing when to put some of it down. Being a Sigma male means walking a path few will understand, but it doesn't have to mean walking it alone. The world doesn't need them to conform, but sometimes it does need them to connect. The real challenge isn't just surviving in solitude, it's knowing when to let people in, when to be seen, and when to step forward instead of always staying in the shadows. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't just to be the most independent, it's to be the most unstoppable. And that can't happen if they're too trapped in their own ways to evolve. If this hit home for you, then you already know you're built differently, and the world needs minds like yours. But here's the deal. This is just the beginning. There's so much more to uncover about the Sigma mindset, the strengths, the struggles, and how to sharpen your edge without dulling your soul. So if you're vibing with this, don't just leave. Level up with us. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Like this video to show the world that Sigma males don't just exist, they dominate. And drop a comment below. What hit you the hardest? What's your biggest struggle? Let's build something real in this space. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone stuck between their strength and their silence, share this with them. Because this isn't just content, it's a movement. And if you're here, you're already part of it. Stay sharp, stay unstoppable, and I'll see you in the next one.